The big story this morning, and this is from the United States. A pickup truck driver killed 8 people and injured more than a dozen others when he drove down a New York City bike path on Tuesday. The suspect has been identified as a 29-year-old Uzbek national living in New Jersey. He's been identified as Saifullo Saipov. He was shot by police and taken into custody after he crashed into a school bus and fled his vehicle. Authorities claim it to be a terrorist attack after the driver shouted Allahu Akbar when he exited his truck. He was reportedly armed with a paintball gun and a pellet gun. 5 Argentine and a Belgian national were among those killed in the attack. Authorities have found a note describing allegiance to the ISIS for the attack site. The suspect has been treated in the hospital.
After the collision, the driver of the truck, a 29-year-old male, exited the vehicle brandishing 2 handguns. A uniformed police officer assigned to the 1st Precinct confronted the subject and shot him in the abdomen. The subject was wounded and transported to a local hospital. A paintball gun and a pellet gun were recovered at the scene. The subject's identity is not being released at this time, pending further investigation. He did make a statement when he exited the vehicle, and if you just look at the MO of the attack, that's consistent with what's been going on. So that along with the statement, has enabled us to label this a terrorist event.
The mayor called the attack near the World Trade Center an act of terror and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians.
It's a very painful day in our city. Horrible tragedy on the west side. Let me be clear that based on the information we have at this moment, this was an act of terror, and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians, aimed at people going about their lives who had no idea of what was about to hit them. We, at this moment, based on the information we have, we know of 8 innocent people who have lost their lives.
U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to bring back extreme vetting of migrants. He has condemned the attack and tweeted, "In NYC looks like another attack by a very sick and deranged person. Law enforcement is following this closely." He further added, and I quote, "We must not allow ISIS to return or enter our country after defeating them in the Middle East and elsewhere. My thoughts, condolences and prayers to the victims and families of the New York City terrorist attack. God and your country are with you," unquote. First Lady Melania Trump also took to Twitter and said, "My heart breaks for NYC today. Thoughts and prayers as we monitor the situation," unquote. The White House condemned the attack. A statement from the White House said, and I quote, "Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of today's terrorist attack in New York City and their families. My administration will provide its full support to the New York City Police Department, including through a joint investigation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We offer our thanks to the first responders who stopped the suspect and rendered immediate aid to the victims of this cowardly attack," unquote. Eyewitnesses described the attack as scary and said everybody should be alert at all times.
So there was a car crash, and after the car crash, I don't know, I saw the car crash, so I ran up the bridge. When I ran up the bridge, I saw this dude with 2 guns. And the guy with the 2 guns, for some reason, was running around. He was getting chased. And then all of a sudden, 4 shots went off, and we all just started running out this way like this. And then right after the shots, all of a sudden, I think the cops came out of nowhere. If you see across the street there seems to be like 2 bodies. There seems to be a blanket over a body. So it was so much, it happened so quick. I don't really know what happened. I just saw the dude with the 2 guns, and then all of a sudden 4 shots went off, and we all just started running. Like there was like probably like 30 to 40 like kids, like middle school kids, and we all just took off that way. Yeah, it was crazy.
We saw the car and it was like surrounded by rubble, and we saw like this. Yeah, we saw the guy. He looked like he was wearing like dark colors, and I think he had a beard, but he was holding 2 guns. So yeah. It's a little scary.
I don't know. We've been through 9/11, so I mean, but now this truck thing and the cars, using cars against people. I mean, I walk up that road every day, you know, to go to wherever, and it's. I mean, you just have to be very, very careful and vigilant all the time.
We hope and pray for the victims and their families, and for all those who, you know, witnessed it, and make sure the children, you know, are taken care of course. But remember that, you know, New York is a great place to live, and it's a safe place, and it shouldn't really, oh, God willing, it shouldn't, you know, cause fear or panic. Kids should be able to go about their lives, enjoying their childhood. So, as a teacher of young children, that's on my mind today.
There was a group, it was maybe 2 women and children that were running towards me, yelling, you know, he has a gun, he has a gun. So I turned around, but then when I heard the gunshots, I was interested and turned back around to see what happened. I got there about 30 seconds after the shooting. The smell was, you know, very strong of gunshots. There was one man laying on the ground. It looked like he had been shot. And there was another man right next to him who was getting arrested. While this was all happening, I heard another police officer yell that the other suspect ran into the park. So then at that time, they all started chasing after him, and other police officers were clearing the area.
Take a look at some of the deadly vehicle attacks that have happened in the U.S. On October 31st, 2017, this is the latest attack that has happened in the United States, where an Uzbek national has mowed down 8 people in New York City. More than a dozen people are injured. This attack has happened in Manhattan, in New York. The vehicle used was a rental truck. 8 persons have died and more than a dozen people have been injured in this attack. On August 17th this year, we had another attack in Barcelona, in Spain. The vehicle used there was a van. 13 people were killed and more than 100 had been injured in that attack. On June 3rd this year, we had another deadly vehicle strike, this time on the London Bridge. Once again, a van was used for this attack. This attack killed 8 people and more than 40 were critically injured. In April this year, on April 7th, there was another vehicle attack. The venue this time was Stockholm in Sweden. A stolen bear truck was used to carry out this strike. 4 people were killed and 15 injured in this attack. In March this year, another vehicle attack took place. The location was Westminster Bridge in London. A rental car was used for this attack, killing 5 people and injuring many others. Last year, 2016, in December, on December 19th, there was another attack using a vehicle. The location, Berlin in Germany. A tractor trailer was the vehicle used for the strike, which killed 12 people and injured 48. Last year in July, 14th of July, in Nice in France, another vehicle attack took place where a 20-ton truck was used to mow down people. 84 people were killed, more than 200 sustained injuries. I'm joined by my colleague Andy Roisgen from the United States. Andy, do we have any latest information coming in from the government side on this dastardly attack?
Well, we know that the suspect, Mr. Saipov, is out of surgery and listed in critical condition. So we'll see what goes on with him. The FBI is going to question him certainly as soon as they can, as soon as he is lucid and awake and is able to talk. We know that authorities have surrounded that Home Depot where he rented the Home Depot pickup truck in New Jersey today. They have surrounded that at this hour. They have also surrounded his apartment complex in New Jersey, where he had a residence, and at apparently his former apartment complex in Florida, where he was living at some point as well. Now, just to backtrack a little bit to give you more an idea to kind of paint the picture of what happened here. This Mr. Saipov, again, a 29-year-old Uzbekistan native, came to the U.S. in 2010. He just went to that Home Depot in New Jersey today, mid-afternoon, and rented this pickup truck, then drove it into Manhattan, the island of Manhattan on the west side, kind of near the One World Trade Center building. Now, we don't know if that has any symbolism to what he tried to do, but it was near that location where he mowed down these bicyclists and pedestrians. We know that 5 of them were from Argentina. He drove about 50 miles an hour. Witnesses said as he drove the equivalent of about 10, 13 blocks or so, mowing down these people, then struck a school bus which had 2 adults and 3 disabled children aboard. And those children were also injured, including 1 critically. Then he jumped out of his truck. He was wearing a tracksuit. He waved around a couple of fake guns. One was a pellet gun. One was a paintball gun. He shouted, Allah Akbar, God is great, in Arabic. And a police officer happened to be standing nearby, shot him in the abdomen. And that's when he was taken to Bellevue Hospital in New York. He underwent surgery, as I said. And now the big question is, what was his motivation? Was he inspired by ISIS? There was apparently some information found in his pickup truck, a note of paper that apparently said allegiance to ISIS and an ISIS flag, apparently, from what we've been hearing from sources. Or was this part of a larger conspiracy? Authorities here are leaning towards the idea that he was a lone wolf type of attacker, like many that we've seen in Europe, who just decided it was inspired by ISIS, maybe going online, and decided to carry out this attack, although authorities say it could have been much worse. And the fact that he didn't have any real guns with him paints a picture of somebody who was kind of scattershot, maybe not so serious about what he was doing, and probably was hoping to be shot by police and die in this. But the fact that he survived is good news for law enforcement. That gives them something to work with, somebody to talk to when he does recover from surgery.
Absolutely. And Andy, also tell us a little more about any information which might have come in about the identity and details about this accused. Obviously, we know he's an Uzbek national who has been in U.S. since 2010. Now, do we know anything about his personal life, in addition to the fact that he's married and has kids, and some of the friends have described him as a good guy who liked America? Do we know anything about his employment status? Do we know anything about, the kind of company he kept, the kind of friends he had?
Well, not much. Nothing officially, obviously, but from what we're hearing from multiple reports was that he was a truck driver, possibly even owned or managed a truck driving company, that he also was an Uber driver. And as you said, his friends, one quoted in Ohio and one quoted in Florida, telling media outlets that they were friends of his. The one in Ohio said that he was also an Uzbek native, that's how he befriended this Mr. Saipov, and both saying that he was a happy guy, a nice guy, that he was married with children, and that he liked the U.S. So they're painting a very different picture of what you might imagine. They said he was no terrorist. And, these are all questions yet to be answered by authorities.
Right. Stay on with us, Andy. Let's take a look at how this attack unfolded. At 3:05 p.m. EST, the attacker drives into a cycle path in Lower Manhattan. He plows into pedestrians and cyclists. Reports say he drove for 20 blocks. The truck then collided with a school bus, injuring 2 adults and 2 children. The attacker got out of the truck with a pellet and paintball gun. The attacker shouted, Allahu Akbar, after getting out of the truck. A policeman on the spot retaliated and shot him in the abdomen. He was taken to the hospital and is expected to survive. By the end of the truck rampage, 8 people were dead. The 29-year-old Saifullo Saipov is in custody. Here is what we know about the attacker and his condition as of now. The 29-year-old suspect Saifullo Saipov from Uzbekistan drove a rented truck down a bike path near the World Trade Center in New York City. He had come to the US in 2010 and is said to have stayed in New Jersey and had an address in Florida. He rented the van about an hour before the attack. The police shot him in the abdomen. He was taken to Bellevue Hospital and is expected to survive.